Guys, hello viewers, welcome to Mr. Marashanya Online Lessons. Today we are going to work on history, paper 2, final touch. I saw your comments, you were requesting for history, paper 2, particularly on the history of Germany and the history of Italy after the First World War, that is Hitler and Mussolini. Please, if you are new on this channel, just help this channel to grow by just subscribing and also like our videos and also share our videos to other people, okay? And as you are going to like this video, you are going to help this video to spread. That is the main reason why I always encourage you to like my videos, okay? So there are people here that are going to write next year or that are preparing to write next year, June or November. Please zivai kuti takavhura now. The enrollment at House of Education is in progress. You can learn here online using your phone, using your WhatsApp. You know, many people that are asking me, I can't do online lessons, I want physical lessons. But the truth of the matter is, online lessons are better than physical, because other lessons I will be sending a video like this, then you're going to download that video ogara naro unenge uina teacher mbamako paunetanga wakangwa, you can just revisit that video. These are some of the advantages of online lessons, okay? So I don't want to waste much of our time. So in the paper that is going to be written this year on paper 2, you are going to see questions like this. So they are going to ask about what you call the Paris Peace Conference. What is the Paris Peace Conference? Kunonze after the outbreak of the First World War. I'm not going to include the outbreak of the First World War. Why? Because there is a video that I did here on YouTube where I was talking about all the causes of the outbreak of the First World War. So you can just go and watch that video. This is number 5. Okay, so these are the questions that you're going to expect on the causes of the First World War. Okay, they might ask you to actually describe the Sarajevo assassination, or they can say the first Moroccan crisis or the second Moroccan crisis. Or the second Moroccan crisis, you must also know that it is well known as the Panther crisis or the Agadir crisis. They can also ask you to describe the first and second Balkan War. They can also ask you to describe the Bosnian crisis, to also describe the system of alliance, and also the Franco-Prussian War. So these are expected questions. Trust me, these questions you're going to see them as you're going to write your exam this year in paper 2 history, okay? So vanhu vakubvunza about the Sarajevo, the Moroccan crisis, the Balkan Wars, the Bosnian crisis, the system of alliance, or the Franco-Prussian War, right? Ndine video randakatoita kudhara here on YouTube, just check. Okay, you are going to see that video where I was talking about the causes of the First World War. I was explaining everything there. And also, they can also ask you about the role played by each great power. The great powers, these are the countries that actually contributed to the outbreak of the First World War. So they can ask you the role played by Germany toward the outbreak of the First World War. Yanga Kamera say, tell us about the role played by Russia, the role played by France, the role played by Britain, the role played by Austria-Hungary, the role played by Italy. Those great powers, unafana kuziva what they did, which actually contributed to the outbreak of the First World War. So, pandainyora manotsa, I said each great power, you must also know the role played by each great power towards the outbreak of the First World War. In other words, I am saying know what countries like Germany, these are great powers, number 1, France, great power, Britain, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and Italy did that actually contributed to the outbreak of the First World War. So I am going to just summarize what Germany did that actually contributed to the outbreak of the First World War. In other words, I'm talking about the role played by Germany that contributed to the outbreak of the First World War. Number 1, Germany, it was the one that attacked France during the Franco Prussian War. No, role number one played by German. Role number two is that German was the one that initiated the system of alliance, which means it was the one that started the system of alliance. So German, she was the one that initiated, that started the system of alliance. So how many points do we have? We have two now. Number three, what German did is to draft the Schifflen plan, which shows that German was intended to the war, or which shows that German wanted the war. Okay, another role played by German is that she annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina. Another action was that German sent a gunboat called the Panther to Agadir. It was a role again played by German, which shows that German wanted the war. And also another role played by Germany is that she gave a blank check to Austria-Hungary in 1914 as a way of supporting Austria-Hungary to attack Serbia, which eventually led to the outbreak of the First World War. Up until the Sarajevo assassination. So all these are the role played by Germany. And also, if you check Germany, she competed with Britain during the naval race. She also competed with Britain during the arms race. All these things, sign secret agreements, the triple alliance, the dual alliance, all those agreements, that German wanted the war. So iwonofana ngozoziva nemamwe maroles akaitwa neGerman, akaitwa neFrance, akaitwa neBritain, akaitwa neRussia, because we don't know kuti vachabvunza zvipi. Indangokuudza zvakaitwa neGerman. You get the sense? Okay, from there those unofana kuziva pama-causes. Now after the causes unofana kuzivawo inonzi iyo the Paris Peace Conference. The Paris Peace Conference, this was the conference held in France. Ndo msangano wakagara wa muFrance uyu. Ndo panotangira kunakidza history. So I want you to listen to me. Right, on Paris Peace Conference, you must also revise, you must know or revise the views, the opinions, the perspectives, okay, of what? Of the big three. The perspectives of the big three, the views of the big three, the perspectives of the big three. That is the view of Woodrow Wilson at the conference, the view of George Clemenceau at the conference, the view of Lloyd George at the conference. So isustoda kuziva, when you're talking about the views of Woodrow Wilson, you can also include Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. You get the sense? So in short, I am going to talk about the views of Clemenceau. Do you know kuti Clemenceau aida revenge? Let me just do this. So here are the views of a guy called Georges Clemenceau, who was representing France. Number one aim, view, opinion of George Clemenceau of France was to have revenge on German for France's suffering. Which means, in other words, George Clemenceau was blaming Germany for France's suffering. So he wanted revenge on German because he was blaming German for France suffering. That's number one. Number two, he wanted to make Germany pay for the cost of damages caused by the First World War, even including the loss of human life. Okay? And also, he wanted to punish Germany for the humiliation she had inflicted on France during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871. So these are the aims. As you can see, what Clemenceau was saying at the conference, you can see that his opinions were being driven by enmity, were being driven by hostility, were being driven by bitterness. You get the sense? Because he wanted to see Germany being the weakest in Europe. weak economically, weak in terms of military, weak in every aspect, okay? Another aim of Clemens Zua was to take away German lands. Just to see, these are the views of the big three. Was also to weaken German industries. And if you check very closely, after the outbreak of the First World War, my industries eku Germany ese akavara. Right, to also reduce armed forces, to weaken German militarily and economically, to have Germany divided into small states, and to hang the Kaiser, to return Alsace and Lorraine to France. Remember, Alsace and Lorraine was taken away from France after France was defeated during the 1870 to 71 war, well known as the Franco-Prussian War, and also prevention of the union of Germany and Austria. Yainzi iyo the Angelas. We are going to talk about it. Atakutaura about the history of German under murume ainzi Hitler. Takuona akuti aiwa zvepa Versailles Street zviya, zvepa Paris Peace Conference zvenyu zvamaitaura ndezvekupenga. Akatanga kuita yainzi the Angelas zvaireva union between Germany and Austria, which was of course forbidden or are not allowed by the terms of the Paris Peace Conference. And also Clemens Zua wanted to return of the French flags are taken by Germany, and Germany was to accept the responsibility of causing the outbreak of the First World War. Ndo wakanga uri muono wa Georges Clemens Zua of France. Ndo zvaitaura izvo. Let us see the view yemurume ainzi Woodrow Wilson. Right, murume anonzi Woodrow Wilson was representing USA, and it is believed that he was an idealist who saw himself as the prophet of peace. So iye aiona sekuti kana akataura mapoints ndiye munhu anokwanisa kuburitsa zvinhu zvine musoro. That's why I'm saying he was an idealist. He was an idealist, and because of that, he saw himself as the prophet of peace. According to what he said during the Paris Peace Conference, there is an evidence that he was truly the prophet of peace. Let us hear what he said at the Paris Peace Conference. Remember, before I talk about this, the reason why these European countries, they gathered, they summoned a meeting, the Paris Peace Conference, it was because they discovered that they observed that the outbreak of the First World War, it caused more harm than good. So they said, let us sit and discuss about ways on which we can prevent the coming of another war that is going to be deadly like this war. Because it is believed that more than 13 million people died during the First World War. Kwakwine destruction of infrastructure, many problems they arise due to the outbreak of the First World War. Saka apanga kugara musangano chiti aiwa, let us reason together so that we can come up with a way forward as to prevent the coming of another war. So Woodrow Wilson, he said there was to be an end of secret agreements. Airevesa, because if you check the causes of the First World War, you can see that the secret agreement, the signing of the secret agreements, it also contributed to the outbreak of the First World War, as it, number one, increased tension ruvengo, enmity ruvengo, anditika saka uyu Woodrow nakanoti aiwa kuti ti prevent the coming of another war ngatimire ima secret agreements, because ndiwo ari kukonzeresa suspicious, ndiwo ari kukonzeresa sour relationship between countries, ndiwo ari kukonzeresa tension, ndiwo ari kukonzeresa hostility, ndiwo ari kukonzeresa enmity. That's number one point. Number 2 point, akati aiwa, there was to be freedom of navigation of the seas. Ndo yangairi another point yake, akati there was to be removal of economic sanctions, economic barriers to trade. Nyika dzese dzakasununguka kuti dzitrade. Right, there was to be a reduction of armaments to a level consistent to support the country only. Aitaura nyaya yekureducwa kwemasoja, because nyika idzi padzaita yainzi iyo the arms race, where they were competing over the number of soldiers. Kuti indine masoldier 20,000, indine masoldier 30,000, indine masoldier akati, indine masoldier akati. Akaona kuti aiwa, zvekuti vanhu varambe vachingoita masoldier akawanda, ndizvo zvimwe zviri kuita kuti vanzwe kuda kungoshandisa masoldier akuti amboita basa. Saka ngati reducei masoldier, number of armaments, number of weapons edu, tisango manufacture weapons here and there. Right. Also, there was to be settlement of colonial claims with proper inhabitants, and also German troops to evacuate, which means to move out of the Russian territory. There was to be restoration of Belgium's sovereignty. Remember the terms of the Franco-Prussian War. It is believed that the remember the terms of the what you call the Schifflen Plan. It is believed that the Schifflen Plan was drafted by Germany in 1905, and it was approved in 1906. And according to the Schifflen Plan, Germany wanted to attack Russia. Germany wanted to attack France through in 6 weeks. You see, it is believed that Germany wanted to attack France, right, through Belgium and turn back to Russia in 6 weeks. Attack France through Belgium and turn back to Russia in 6 weeks. That was the term of what we call the Schifflen Plan. Saka yakato destroy Belgium, saka yaifana kurestore because yanga isina mosha. He also emphasized on the return of Alsace and Lorraine to France, because aiza kuti Alsace and Lorraine zvikaramba zviri kuGermany, ruvengo pakati peFrance neGermany rwanga rusingazopere, ende izvo ndo zvimwe zvaizogona kukonzeresa another war. Italy was to recover her proper boundary, yani the frontier. The subject people under the Austrian were to be independent, and also Romania, Serbia and Montenegro were to be evacuated and given the access to the sea. And also the people under the Turkish rule were to be autonomous and open, they must be open to ships and also commerce of all nations, which is the trade of all nations. Another point, yaitaura nemurume ainzi Woodrow Wilson, ITE, an independent Poland was to be created. IT Poland must be independent and also be given access to the sea. Aitaura about the formation ye inonzi iyo international organization well known as the League of Nations. Komanaka. Right, ndo wanga uri muono wemurume ainzi Woodrow Wilson. Hande pane murume ainzi iye Georges Lloyd George anga akamira. Alright, the guy called Lloyd George was representing Britain, and ndo my views ake. Number one, he wanted an end of German threat to the British Navy and the Empire. And number two, to make Germany a non-aggressive country without colonies. Kuroti ile nyika isingazode hondo without any colony. And also he wanted to prevent Germany from becoming economically weak, because during that time Germany was Britain's best trading partner. Saka zvaireva kuti kana Germany ikava too weak economically, also Britain was going to be affected economically, because the two were trading partners, in fact best trading partners. And also to prevent Germany from becoming very poor, such that the Germans won't turn to communism. He also wanted to avoid humiliation of the German, so that vaizosha reason to seek revenge. You know, if someone is humiliated, he is going to have reasons to seek revenge. To help secure France against Germany by preventing France from becoming too powerful, and to create balance of power, that no one European country can threaten others. And also he was in support of the point of hanging the Kaiser and to make Germany pay for war damages. You get the sense? As you can see, here are some of the views wemurume anonzi Woodrow Wilson of USA to establish peace without humiliating defeated powers, because aiziva kuti kunyadziswa kwema-defeated powers was likely going to cause another war yaizonzi iyo the second world war. Saka akati aiwa ngati establish a peace but without humiliating the defeated powers. He also emphasized on the issue of the reduction of the armaments. Aka emphasize on preventing Germany from becoming too aggressive again, to establishing lasting peace, to have a fair settlement, and also to establish International Association of Nations, the League of Nations, and to base the peace of treaties on the 14 points. Itaima peace treaties, but being guided by my 14 points. Those aitaura murume ainzi Woodrow Wilson. And he also emphasized on creating a world made of the safe democracy, and to punish Germany for her aggression, and to avoid forcing Germany to pay heavy damages, because here's another reason to seek revenge. Okay. So these are the views of the big three. After that, on my PDF that I prepared yesterday, I wrote something very important. Let me show you that. I said, again on Versailles Street, you must also revise the Versailles Street. How are you going to do that? By specifically touching on territorial terms and non-territorial terms of the Versailles Treaty and other treaties. And after that, you must also revise my problems faced by the peacemakers attached my big three at the Paris Peace Conference. These are some of the areas that I want to start. Let me just summarize what you call the Versailles Treaty. Right, but before looking at the Versailles Treaty, let me show you the treaties signed by defeated powers. Number one, the Versailles Treaty, it was signed by Germany in 1919. Number two, the Treaty of Saint-Germain was signed by Austria. The Treaty of Neuilly was signed by Bulgaria. The Treaty of Trianon was signed by Hungary. The Treaty of Sèvres was signed by Turkey. The Treaty of Lausanne was signed by Turkey. Okay? And also you must know my countries that were present at the Paris Peace Conference and their representatives. Okay? So, my countries angaripo, number one, we have USA represented by Woodrow Wilson. We have Britain represented by Lord George. We have France represented by George Clemenceau. We have Italy represented by Vittorio Emanuele Orlando. We have Japan represented by Incali. We have Greece represented by Venizelos. We have South Africa represented by John Smith. Okay? So, I'm going to kumabvunza part A, my questions are. This question here, yakanzi, the defeated powers not present at the Paris Peace Conference. Vangavasipo, my countries angasipo, but vanoachi discuss zvavo. Germany was not there, Hungary was not there, Turkey was not there, Austria was not there. All these countries, they were just summoned to actually sign something already discussed in their absence. Okay? Right, now let us work on what you call the territorial terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Kana tichitaura pamusoro pema-territorial terms, tikuda kutaura ma-territories lost by Germany zvichienda kune dzimwe nyika. Those are two ma-territorial terms, okay? So number one, Germany, it lost Alsace-Lorraine. The Saar was to be administered by the League. These are the points, you see? Yes, I can't go through them. Right, ngatichitarisa ima questions vanogona kubvunza on part A. Here are the questions. Vanogona kuti list down my territories lost by Germany in Europe at the Treaty of Versailles. Yakalosta, Alsace-Lorraine, Melmad, Danzig, Northern Mosen, Rhineland, Eupen, Upper Silesia, Memel, Bessin, Strasbourg, and Posen. Nana Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and other countries. And also my parts of territories lost by Germany in Africa. Yagalostara, New Guinea, Namibia, Rwanda, Togo, and Cameroon, Tanganyika, Burundi, and other countries there. And also, unofana kuziva kuti iwewe, my terms of the Versailles Treaty were they fair? Ina ndichataura pamusoro pe this thing because there is a video that I did randakato uploada on the Versailles Treaty explaining in detail the Versailles Treaty. Right, now on slave trade. Pa slave trade vachakubvunza kuti kudii, they are going to ask you about the causes of slave trade, the effects of slave trade, and the abolition of slave trade. Saka ma cause vari kuti what really caused the slave trade, ma effects akavapo. What are the effects of slave trade both in Africa and Europe? Wapedza wotaura about the end of slavery, ndo inonzi abolition. End of yakazopera sei, chii chakakonzeresa kuti ipere. Then also on slave trade again, they are also going to ask you about the reasons why Africans were enslaved. Why pa slave trade vai prefer ma Africans. Vanogona kubvunza about ma benefits nemanani benefits of slave trade to Africa and Europe. Let me just shed more light because this is a new topic. And I know many teachers, they don't teach this one. So let me just touch on it a bit. Okay? So we actually have my countries in slave trade. We actually have my countries that participated in the slave trade. You must know at least 5. So that you know answer part A. Chinombon slave trade chi. This was buying and selling of human beings. Buying and selling of human beings from Africa vachenda to Europe. Saka ma countries that participated in slave trade include Portugal, include Spain, include Britain, France, India, Arab countries, USA and Germany. These were countries that participated in buying and selling of human beings, okay, from Africa to Europe. Right. Then ma factors that led to the rise of slave trade ndo atiri kuti machi ma causes of slave trade ndo atati chitu unofana kuziva aya. Number 1, mineral discovery in the new world. Pavakaona kuti kune ma minerals ku Europe, kwanga kwakuda labor vashandi vanozoshanda ikoko. Saka paka vane discovery of the mineral discovery in the new world. Zvakaita kuti vade demand labor supply, and that labor supply was from Africa, and that labor supply from Africa was very cheap as compared to labor supply from India. Ma Indians, they were lazy, angari wiki, easily attacked by European diseases, but ku Africa they were strong, they were resistant kuma diseases. Saka vai prefer ma Africans, and also ma Africans vakaona out they can even work even in difficult conditions. You get the sense? Then also another reason, it was plantation agriculture in the new world. Jese is leader to slave trade in the sense that that demand on labor. And that labor was from Africa at cheap. Okay. So ndopo wari kuti plantations of various crops such as tobacco what was set up in areas like Brazil, and the most outstanding plantations were those of sugar in Brazil, produced again an acute problem of labor supply arose. Hence slave trade came into play to solve that problem. And also European industrialization could develop kwema industry ku Europe kwakakonzeresa slave trade in the sense that they were now coming to Africa looking for those people to work in their industries. You get the sense? And also personal glory. Anthem Gonçalves, a young Portuguese, is believed to have started the Atlantic slave trade in 1441. His intention was to acquire for himself personal glory. Zvaitodadisa kuti unema slaves ako. So he did that so that he can acquire or get his personal glory. He captured about 12 male and female slaves from Africa and sailed to Lisbon, where he handed them to Prince Henry so as to gain personal glory from Prince Henry. The prince intended to Christianize the slaves and then send them back to Africa as mamissionary. Saka kunonzi patengeswa 12 vakadzi nevarume vakange vatorwa nemurume ainzi Anthem Gonzalez as a way of gaining his personal glory. It is believed that Prince Henry, instead of using those slaves as slaves, he decided to Christianize them. After Christianized them, he sent them back to Africa as my missionary. Ndo vakauya vakuparidza. Some of them include vanonzi vana Reverend Charles Helm. Ndo vamwe vakauya vakuparidza avo. Ndo vakazosendwa back to Africa vama missionaries. But vakatorwa vari slaves. It is however believed that the slaves were then sold into domestic slaves. Then also another reason or another cause for slave trade was domestic use. The Portuguese who started the slave trade did so to meet domestic labor requirements. It was not until about 1521 that slaves were exported directly from West Africa to the Americas. Prior to 1521, slaves were sent from Lisbon to Americas. Lisbon was now selling accumulated slaves who initially were serving domestic purposes to the Americas after realizing the profits is doing so. Right, and also another reason why kwaiva slave trade, it was for the Africans to get rid of the outcast criminals or subject people in various African kingdoms who were convicted by the kings for committing various crimes, were sold as punishment. Vese vaikomita macrime vaitengeswa as punishment by African leaders. Okay, and also failure to pay debts. Africans could be enslaved for the single reason that they would have failed to pay debts. One could even cede himself or herself as compensation for failing to pay a debt. Waita chikwereti wakonwa kubhadhara. Vanhu vaitengeserwa izvoti wakonwa kubhadhara mari yangu ndokutengesa. That's why vaitengeswa. Those some of the causes of slave trade. And also the need to get rid of war captives. Vakaenda for raiding. Remember, African states vainyanya kuita raiding, especially the Ndebele. Vaiti vakabata slaves. Instead of actually punishing them, vaito vatengesa kuma Americas, kunana Brazil and other countries. Okay, and also religious factors. Muslims enslaved non-Muslims as a way of creating a Muslim world. And on the other hand, Christians also, they were enslaving non-Christians as a way of creating a Christian world. You see some of the reasons why even writing is so. Right, and also greed. Slave trade became the most profitable activity during that period. With that in mind, we cannot doubt that some participants did participate trade as a way of accumulating their wealth. Kunyanyanya ma-African kings, both ndo vai benefit and ndo vai poor ma gives, and they sell their children. This explains why some were enslaved for no reasonable offenses. Need to get rid of witches. Africans believed in witchcraft. Though witchcraft existed, it was regarded as evil in Africa. So waitengeswa as a slave. And another part that is exciting about ma witches is that ma witches, some historians believe that ma witches were not sold or bought, but simply offered as a free gift. Yaipuwa sembasera because vaitonetsa, because witchcraft, though it was in existence, it was regarded as evil. And also another reason, it was hatred. Ukangovengwa chaiko waitotengeswa as a slave. Guys, are you following this? Okay, and let us now look at the reasons why only Africans were enslaved. Why, of all the people, they were busy enslaving Africans? Why? Why Africans? Here are the reasons, right? Please, I want you to listen to this one. All right. Number one, they appeared to be very, very strong as compared to the Indians. So there was a comparison between the African labor and the Indian labor. And they came to a conclusion that the Africans, they are stronger than the Indians. That's why Africans only were enslaved. That is number one reason. And number 2 reasons, they were resistant to tropical disease. Ma-Africans akaonekwa kuti tikatora ma-Indians, they were easily attacked by tropical diseases. But as for the Africans, their immune system is strong and they were resistant to tropical diseases. That was another reason why Africans were enslaved. Another reason why Africans were enslaved is that they had the ability, take note of this, they had the ability to endure difficulties, to withstand difficulties, to work even in difficult conditions. So as you can see that this was the reason why Africans were being enslaved. Okay, they were used to harsh conditions of living. Imagine the reason. Like my Africans ajaira kushanda even in harsh conditions. So let us prefer Africans. They were less rebellious. Vanga vasinga panduke as compared to Indians. Were usually conciliatory. White servants, mainly comprising of criminals and social outcasts from Europe, were a West alternative. Okay, many of them died because of tropical diseases and blah, 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 blah. What are the methods used to obtain my slave? Slaves. Number 1, they were raiding. These are the methods: raiding, alliance with the African kings, kutosaina agreements kuti pamwe dzimoti pa maslave akati, kidnapping, kidnapper, wars, wars. And then also judicial enslavement. Judicial enslavement ndo ipi? People found guilty of various crimes by kings could be sentenced to deportation into slavery. And also self-enslavement. Munangonozita slave because of nzara. Right? Domestic slave. Ndo ma methods aishandiswa ku obtaina ma slaves. Zimwe zanofana uzia ma sources of slaves. Vai mawane ma slaves. What about the evils of the slave trade? Right, let us go and talk about the effects of slave trade. My effects of slave trade, uchaona my political effects, zvakonzeresa destruction of my weak African states, growth of African states, mamwe aidestroywa, mamwe achigrow. Pakava ne increase in warfare because it was a way of capturing my slaves. Pakava ne loss of political power, especially to those who were defeated. Pakavani corruption of African judicial system as a way of getting more slaves so that you can acquire more wealth. Strained political relations between the states kuvengana papasisina kuwirana zvachose because another state had to capture another state kuti vawane ma slaves vatengese. What about my social effects? Death of the people. Many people, they died during the transportation, during the wars, during raiding. Population loss. Africa, it is believed that yakasara yava depopulated. Why? Because vanhu vazhinji vakabva vaenda ku Europe. Pakavaone decline in African population. Pakavaone distortion of sex ratio. Panga pasina balance of sex ratio. Why? Because those who were young, those who were strong, ndo vaitorwa voenda ku Europe. And it was a funny way. I'm not going to show you where they actually did that. So the way they were as a slave, waiswa somewhere else, and there was a way they were actually knowing your price. Are you going to cost $2 or are you going to cost $3? Vanga vasingakuise pa scale. No. Vai kuisa on top of maybe on stage and you'll be naked, right? And they would say those with bigger manhood, okay, bigger manhood, they would fetch higher value, and it's not only bigger manhood, but how active that manhood would be, because they would even invite a beautiful lady, and after inviting the beautiful lady, they just flicker or flickering on that manhood, the way it is going to respond. That's how they were going to actually know your value, your price. If your manhood is very, 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 very active, Let me live like that. And also same to women, they were checking those breasts, those who were powerful, because they know that a virgin, they are powerful as compared to non-virgins. And another way, they were testing actually the ability to withstand difficulties. They were testing about the conditions of the breast, right? The conditions of the breast. So if those breasts are like this, and higher value here, higher value, and if your breast is like this, low value. I'm sorry for that, but you need to understand these guys, okay? So another effect, yeah. So zvakazoita ndezvekuti varume vazhinji vakaenda, vakadzi ndokusara. Saka pakava a disturbed, distorted a sex ratio, and izvi ndo zvakakonzeresa origin of polygamy, right? Origin. So if you check very closely, you are going to see kuti paizonzi panenge paine vakadzi 100 panenge paine varume 50 kana kuti panenge paine varume 60 ko 40 vakadzi vaita sei. Saka varume, they came together and they came to a conclusion that let us actually legalize polygamy so that we can help other 40 women. You get the sense? So that we can help other 40 women. That's why even now it's very, 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 very difficult actually for other men to actually stick to one faithful partner. Maybe because they are merciful. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Let me leave it like that. All right. Racism. It was another effect. The slave trade developed racial images of European superiority over African inferiority. So, Kutima Africans, they were sold, that my Europeans, they were superior than the Africans. Because my Africans, they were being regarded as commodity, like wine, like other things that are useless, All right. Africans were European commodities. Just to see breakdown of my families, breakdown of my families, because kwaitonzikana wakanaka waitorwa nemabosi evarungu, wororwa nevarungu, and kana murume wako ari strong akasimba aitorwa oenda, saka paiva ne-family break up. Then pakava ne-formation of class system, general insecurity and destruction, na cultural violence, pakava ne-distortion of the culture, abuse of the Africans. There was abuse of women. They were raped, and even men, they were also abused. Waitotoka na uri murume ari nanano, waitotorwa ne varungu vechikadzi. So there was abuse for women and men, and starvation was also there. And birth of new languages, ndo pakatanga inonzi Swahili yakatanga because of slave trade. Then what about the economic effects of the slave trade? Late development of the production of cash crops in the West Africa. That was another effect. Loss of economically productive personnel. Indigenous mining and crafts decline. African agriculture, it suffered. Introduction of new crops in Africa. Africa got luxurious goods. Coastal kingdoms accumulated what? Wealth. Let us talk about abolition of slave trade. Kupera kwayo. Do you want me to explain this? And I will also explain Muslim. Guys. Look at what I'm doing. Easy. Some of you are going to just watch the video. Then you leave it like that. You don't give it a like. You don't even share. You don't even comment. Guys. Let's be supportive, okay? Right, abolition of slave. We are talking about end now. Kupera quest, end of slave trade. End of slave trade, okay? So we have my economic reasons why slave trade ended. Number one, accumulation of sugar in Britain. Yanga yakuandisa overproduction. And Britain had enough slaves. That's why yakazomira. And industrial revolution. Kwa kusingachadiwe vanu. Kwa kudiwa ma raw materials. Akaita sana gold. Need for markets. Kwa kusingachadiwe vanu. Kwa kudiwa ma markets. Boss kwa ne overproduction. Economic losses from the New World, slave revolts, kunetsa kwema slaves, and also zvimwe zvakakonzeresa anonzi mahumanitarian factors. Ndo panopindawo vanhu vaMwari vana John Wisu, ndo vakapindawo neshoko raMwari, and they were condemning slave trade as evil and inhuman. Why? Because it was against the law of God, which says all men are equal before God. Ndo panopinda humanitarian factors. Pane anonzi ma-abolitionist movements vakange vachisupporta those who were supporting the abolition. Ndo avari panapa vana Granville Sharp, William Wilberforce, Falwell Buxton, James Stephen, George Fox, takadaro. Okay, so that's it. So guys, here are some of the questions dzavanokubvunza. It's on part A, they will ask you this. On part B, they will ask you this. On part C, they will ask you this. So go and start this question thoroughly. Uruku answer one up. So on slave trade, we are done. Let us now look at the League of Nations. The League of Nations, you must go and start. Here you must know the aims of the League of Nations, why the League was formed. Okay? You must also know the successes and the failures of the League. Ma-organs of the League of Nations, and their operation, their functions. Akaita said the General Assembly. What do yaita nezve mabasa ayo. The Council yaita nezve mabasa ayo. Yaiva the Secretariat nebasa rayo. The International Labour Organization, the ILO, yaita nezve, and the Court of Justice yaita nezve. And also on the League of Nations, don't forget this. You must also know the weaknesses of the League of Nations, or the reasons why the League failed. Ziva zvese izvo, okay? Then Hitler and Mussolini. Guys, I want you to listen to me on this one. So I'm going to try to actually summarize it. Okay, so on the history of Germany and Italy, under the dictators Hitler and Mussolini, you must know factors that led to the rise of Hitler. That's number one. Number two, know the problems faced by German or Italy after the outbreak of the First World War. Know Hitler or Mussolini's domestic policy. Know Hitler or Mussolini's foreign policy. You must also know steps taken by Hitler or Mussolini to come to power. Let me explain to you this in detail. So on this one, let me do this. Toda kuti tange ne dictatorship in Italy. Tetitaura pamusoro pemurume anonzi chi Mussolini. Let us start by looking at the problems faced by Italy between 1919 and 1922. Kureva kuti after the outbreak of the First World War. Vakasangana neatinoti political problems, economic and social problems. I am going to start explaining what we call the economic, political and social problems faced by Italy after the First World War. Number one, economically, there was low industrial production. That's number one problem. What caused this? It was lack of raw materials in the industry. And there was low agricultural production. And there was unemployment, especially in industrial north. Why unemployment? Because in Italy, there was a closure of industries. There was also lack of raw materials. So as I'm going to talk about the problems faced by Italy, those same problems akasangana ne German foot. You get the sense? So these problems that Italy faced after the outbreak of First World War, those same problems that Germany faced after the outbreak of First World War, these are the same reasons that led to the rise again of Hitler and Mussolini. You get the sense? So a huge war debt, it was another problem. There was inflation. For example, a loaf of bread which cost 120 lira before the outbreak of the First World War, it was now bought at 600 lira. So there was serious inflation. There was strikes. There was lack of capital for the industry to run or a business to run. And there was shortage of food in the country. Lack of raw materials which caused the closure of my industries. Kwanga kuine closure of my banks. Kwanga kuine decline in trade. There was lockout of workers by employees. High taxation was there. Use of outdated machinery. It was a problem that Italy, Germany faced after the outbreak of the First World War. Let us talk now about the social problems faced by Italy and Germany. Okay, after the outbreak of the First World War. Number one, there was a lot of corruption in some places, especially in the judiciary system. There was hunger, the standard of living was very, very low, and also strikes were rampant. There was increase in crime rates. Prostitution became the order of the day. So they left with no option than to venture into prostitution. And there was demonstration. There was also no security in industries. No mamwe social problems akasangana ne Italy. Other social problems include poverty. Domestic violence was the order of the day. Less advanced education. 78% of the population in Italy and Germany was illiterate. And also the South was primitive and poor. And also brigade and lawlessness. Critical shortage of food and also outbreak of diseases. Ngatitarise ma political problems. Andiri kutaura aya ndio ma same problems zvekare akakonzeresa same problems zvekare akasangana neGermany between 1919 and 1922 kana kuti after the outbreak of the First World War. Alright, another problem political pakati siyane zvapo, but ndichataura ari common anowanika kwese. Number one, too many political parties yaiwanikwa kwese kuGermany neku Italy. Anditika. Then also unstable coalition government yaiwanikwa kwese. Strikes and demonstration yaiwanikwa kwese. Right, clash between the church and the state yaiwanikwa kwese. Inefficient and corrupt civil service yaiwanikwa kwese. Fear of communism yaiwanikwa kwese. Anditika, weak government yaiwanikwa kwese. Political violence yaiwanikwa kwese. Ndoma problems akasangana ne both Italy and Germany. Saka ndiri kupa zviri apply kwese because I'm going to teach Hitler and Mussolini at the same time. So uchibva apa wakuda kuziva kuti saka chii chakakonzeresa rise of Hitler, rise of Mussolini. Listen to me. Do you see all these problems? And that's all right. All these problems, they led to the unpopularity of the existing government, thereby promoting the popularity of the fascists, thereby promoting the popularity of the Nazis, thereby promoting the popularity of Germany, of Hitler and Mussolini. So what actually led to the rise of Hitler? What actually led to the rise of Mussolini? It was these problems that Italy faced, that Germany faced. Chaunofana uzandi kuti pandinoti Germany tikutaura nezva Hitler, pandinoti Italy tikutaura nezva Mussolini, pandinoti fascist party tikutaura nezva Mussolini, pandinoti the Nazi party tikutaura nezva Germany. So ndiri kuti vakati ma factors that led the rise of Hitler, unotaura ma economic factors esa ndataura, ma political factors esa ndataura, ma political problems esa ndataura, ma social problems esa ndataura. Vakati ma factors that led the rise of Mussolini, zvese zvataura apa ndo ma answer. Zviri kubatika here, but hazvisiri zvega. Pane zvimwe zvakazokonzeresawo zvisiri ma problems akasangana nenyika idzi. Zvimwe zvakazokonzeresawo to the rise of Mussolini, to the rise of German and stuff like that. Ndo aya ma factors ari panapa. Okay? Number one, it was the fear of the communism. Ndo mamwe why. Anditika. Then also use of propaganda, the oratory, kuraguti public speaking. Mussolini na Hitler, both they were good public speakers. Anditika. Then also another thing is use of violence, use of intimidation, right? And also personal abilities of Hitler. Kana mabvunza zva Hitler, personal abilities of Mussolini, kana mabvunza zva Mussolini, and also other things here. Zvese zvakonzesa rise is zvese. Tiriko heroko. Right. Let's now go to actually what you call domestic policy. Domestic policy ya Hitler nea Mussolini pane zvakafanana. So inini changobata zvakafanana because of time. Ndizvo here? So ngatari say this. Panapa pari kunzi Mussolini wanted to establish dictatorship, ichokwadi, na Hitler aidawo kuestablish a dictatorship. Saka tane 1 point. Banning of all opposition political parties zvakaitwa na Hitler futi. Saka pati kuti domestic nzvisa kuti kutaura zvaakaita ava in power akaitei, akaestablish a dictatorship, akabana all opposition political parties, anditika, then he ruled by decree, zvakaitwa nevesezvo, right? Then also they vanototaura nezve apa totaura zvaMussolini. Mussolini made Italy a totalitarian state where he had total control, na German futi akazviita izvi na Hitler. Kufoma kwe-secret police kwakaitwa futi na Hitler. Mussolini akafoma secret police yainzi Ovara. Hitler akafoma secret police yainzi Gestapo. Right? Then duda zvangofanana. Opponents were killed. Vese vauraya ma-opponents vavengi vavo vaurawa. Ndoda taura zviri common. Unotoscore chaite kungoziva zvese zvikuwanikwa kwese. Right, there was free education, ichokwadi. Divorce was forbidden, zvakaitika kwese izvo. Ma-trade unions were banned, zvakaitika kwese. Ma-strikes were banned, zvakaitika kwese. Creation of employment, zvakaitika kwese. This one, yakaitika futi kwese. Industries were encouraged to with government subsidies, zvakaitika kwese izvo. Saka uri kuona mapoints ese andati ese ari kuwanikwa kuna Hitler and Mussolini. Vangu domestic policy ameno ndeya Hitler kana ndeya Mussolini. Ndo zvauri kutaura izvo zvese. Ngataure nezvemabenefits. Tinotaura zviri common, zviri kuwanika kwese. Ma-benefits. Did the people of... to what extent did Mussolini's domestic policy benefit the people of Italy? Vanogona kuti to what extent did Hitler's domestic policy benefit the people of Germany? Ma-answers ari papa andichakupa ndo mamwe chete auchangoshandisa. Right. Banning of trade unions brought about order and progress. Inowanikwa kwese. Law and order was restored. Yes. There was a provision of good accommodation. Yes. Yakawanikwa kwese. Employment creation was there kwese. Anditika. Ndo mapoints anowanikwa kwese. However side wakutaura abolition of uyu anowanikwa futi kwese. Unemployment was not completely wiped out. Anditi zvese izvozvo. Right. Toenda pa foreign policy. Foreign policy ndo yakati siyane. Foreign policy yakati siyane. Yakati siyane. Boss. Ma foreign policy tikutaura kuti vakaitei. But uchaona kuti kune zvimwewo zviri common zviri kuwanika kwese anditi. Iyi ndo foreign policy ya Mussolini. Ndo inonzi iyo act of aggression. Saka tiri kuti akainvada the Greek island of Corfu. Zvese just read. Zviri common ndezvipi. Invaded Ethiopia. Mapoints are common. Withdraw from the League of Nations. Zvakawanda. You can just read on your own. But ndakupa zvinhu zvaunofana kungobata in general. And unofana kuziva kuti unoverenga papi chapter ndo zvinhu zviri very very important. You get this sense. Right, kuna Hitler unofana kuzoziya bhuku rake rakanyorwa Mein Kampf. So Hitler, while he was in jail, he wrote his book rainzi iro Mein Kampf, meaning my struggle. Saka ane ma-ideas ake aka-expressa in his book called Mein Kampf. Number one, he wanted to bring back all lost German territories, to unify all the Germans, to unify the German and Austria, to expand Germany eastwards, and also to expel Jews from Germany and to stop payment of reparation, to expand territorial boundaries, to secure enough living space, yainzi Lebensraum, to restore Germany to her dominant place in Europe. Ndo ma-aims ake ayo. Mubhuku rake rainzi Mein Kampf, raakanyora ari mjail. Get the sense? So ukatara mafactors that led to the rise ndo mamwe chete, ndo maproblems futi akasangana neGermany, maproblem akasangana futi neItaly esa uri kuona saka ngomaziva unonowana zvekunyora. Okay guys, now we are done guys. Be supportive, vasati vasubscribe, share link. Imimi kana manyora kune vamwe vachada kunyora, share link kuna uri kunyora next year so that they can also benefit. And those vari kuda kunyora next year vanoda kujoina ma-online lessons, matononoka kasirai, because we are starting 1 November there. 1 November. So make sure you contact me so that you can start your lessons. Okay, so guys, just go and read what I told you. Hapana chombonetsa, the exam is going to be very easy. Very easy. Okay, so guys, I'll meet you in the next one with this one out. Please, kaus not subscribe. Kana usina like the video, imbo like your video rimboita 1,000 likes, just this one mumbozviita rimbo spread kaniti. I'm helping you, you also help me. All right, I will appreciate. I want to see your comments.